Hello everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Indexer Office Hours. Today is the 7th of November, and this is Indexer Office Hours 132. For all those who are new to Index Office Hours, this is the town square for Graph ecosystem participants to come together and discuss the most important and relevant topics for indexers. This is a conversation. We love participation, so if you'd like to get involved, please raise your hand and I'll bring you up on stage, or feel free to type into the chat box in the corner there. As you are aware, I'm sure, this is going to be recorded and put onto public channels like YouTube. So if you're concerned about privacy, please bear that in mind. And with that, let's get into today's agenda. So I'm going to give a shout out to 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗂𝗧, and this one is for Esther, who is a member of the Graph advocates community and just the Graph advocates DAO and the Graph community in general. She's a lovely person and has contributed even to IOH and has a very rich history of multiple contributions in the Web3 space. If you're interested to hear a little bit about her story and how she came into the Graph ecosystem from a non-technical background, but has still made major contributions, I would highly recommend checking out her episode. So let me just paste the... oh, it's already done. Perfect. With Juan there with his agenda pasting abilities. Thank you, sir. Okay, wonderful. And with that, I'll hand it over to Anna, who's going to take us into our regularly scheduled repo watch section. I can't seem to hear Anna. Maybe it's me. Okay, it seems like I'm not the only one. Maybe might be an issue with the stage or the mic. I'm not sure. Awesome, cool. Thanks, Anna. Just as you're doing that, maybe it might be a good idea to hop over to Juan for Protocol Watch, and then we'll come back to Repo Watch.
Sure thing. Okay, so for Protocol Watch, we have a few things to cover. Getting into foreign governance as always. We have support for running mainnet. This is the EVM chain for Axie Infinity, as far as I remember. It's just been added to the forum like a day ago or 2 days ago, so it's pretty new, but apparently they provided everything that's required for the chain integration. Next up, Decimal Smart Chain integration. They, I don't know why they asked how it's going, because they didn't answer Matthew's question, or rather like statement that the RPCs or the peers were not working. But yeah, they asked for some updates. Yeah, that's pretty much the situation. Hopefully they can fix the peer situation. Next up, we have forum research. And since it's the beginning of November, we have the monthly core dev updates for all of the different core devs. This includes Messari, the Guild, Pinax, Edge and Node, Streaming Fast, Geo, GraphOps, and Semiotic Labs. So if you're interested in any of those, again, they are quite lengthy. So if you're interested in any of those, they are linked in the agenda under the forum research category of Protocol Watch. Next up, we have contract suppository. We have a few PRs that are still to be merged. One is a fix for GNS to use the correct token amount when creation or owner changes, basically. Then we have Chur work in progress changes to integrate with SDK. Then some Sepolia staging testnet and Sepolia testnet PRs. This is mostly just to move the testnet from 𝗀𝗲 to Sepolia, as it has been hinted like a few times already, mainly because 𝗀𝗲 is, well, no longer a testnet as it was before, and also because now Arbitrum supports Sepolia. So yeah, we are basically having to move to Sepolia. And then a fix to set the hard code amount minimum for L2 creation to 1 GRT. That's it for the contracts repository. For network subgraphs, we don't have any new releases, but again, we have the FDS or file data sources refactor coming for both the network subgraph and the analytics subgraph. So hopefully we can release that soon. That's pretty much it for 𝗏𝗏𝗧. So if Anna is ready, I can hand it over to her.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so today on 𝗏𝗏𝗧, starting with execution layer clients, we have had a new release on Avalanche. This is 1.10.15. This only adds Pebble as an allowed option for DB type and fixes a C chain tracer API panic. And then we also had a new release on Arbitrum Nitro. This release is 2.2.0 alpha 1, so it's like a release candidate. And what you need to know here is that all of the flags that start with node have been moved to execution. So every single CLI flag that's node.something has been moved to execution.something. And then Heimdall, new release version 1.0.3, which just addresses some minor fixes encountered in the previous release. Moving on to consensus layer clients, we have had a new release on Nimbus. This is version 23.10.1. This is a low urgency hotfix that addresses a peer scoring issue introduced in the previous release. Now, this issue manifests under specific network circumstances as a buildup of gossip topics with a low number of peers happens. So if you are one of the affected users, you should make sure to upgrade. Otherwise, it's a low urgency hotfix. And then moving on to GraphStack, we have had a new indexer service and agent release. This is version 0.20.23. Some of the changes here. It adds a network option for the actions approve command. This was in response to there wasn't any network option before, so all of the actions would be approved on all of the networked when using the multi-indexer option. Also, a startup parameter called deployment management that can be set to auto or manual has been added to indexer agent. This is because the team recognizes that some indexers have other systems or tools for managing deployment. And finally, there's been a fix to max allocation epoch value provided by the staking contract not being considered when identifying expired allocations during the reconciliation loop. So what this means is that the agent now only closes allocations when they are duly expired rather than after one epoch. We also had 2 new releases on Subgraph Radio, so version 0.19 and version 0.1.10. 0.19 adds peer data and local peer data GraphQL APIs. And finally, a quick reminder that tomorrow we have LOH running at 5 p.m. UTC. So please come and join us so we can talk more about Launchpad changes and bring your questions and stuff like that. And that is it for me. Any questions or comments? If not, back to Abel.
I'll just give people a couple of seconds, people typing. Seems like Vince has got a question, so State Machine. I guess the question from Vince is a general question to everyone. So curious to get people's input on that.
We haven't yet upgraded to the latest indexer agent, so we haven't seen that issue, but thank you for reporting. And Matthew, you're correct, it's 6 p.m. UTC. We just had the PST change today or yesterday in Canada, so my brain is all over, but it will make sure to be there the right time.
Indeed, we need to figure out a way to bring back the soundboard in this context, because those are awesome. Okay, cool. Just a quick question before we move on. When folks came, because we're testing this format, when folks came in, they heard like elevator music, right? Like you guys heard elevator music or some sort of music in the waiting room, correct? Just give me a thumbs up if you heard that. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then if I unmute here, can you guys hear the music now, or can you hear nothing? No. Okay. Cool. So it's on the individual's device. Cool. Just wanted to confirm it's an individual toggle. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Cool. All right. Next topic. Thank you. Let's move on. So Thiago has an announcement that he'd like to share with everyone before we move into the next section. So Thiago, without further ado, feel free to let people know.
Okay, I was muted. Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay, guys. So today I have a special announcement to make. This week will be the last IOH I'll be participating. As this Thursday will be my last day at EdgeNode, and I really wanted to appreciate all the support I've received from the Indexer community. It's been a pleasure to work with everyone. Special thanks for Pain and Stake Machine that were invaluable during all my prototyping. You guys rock. And yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. And I'll keep this Discord handle. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. But yeah, just for let you all know. But in case you need any help or assistance, you can also reach Paca or Ford. They will be here for you. But yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for the experience. Okay, thanks, Able.
You will be very much missed. Thank you very much for all of your contributions to IOH, and I'm excited for your future. Awesome. Cool. Now so much love in the chat. I love it. This is awesome. So now I will hand it over to Paca, who's going to hit us with a few announcements. You can take it in whatever order you'd like, Paca. So we've got the Project Watch section as we do normally, and then you've got the Sunrise announcement. Feel free to fire away in whatever order you like.
Sure. I'll kick it off with Project Watch, and then we can pivot to Sunrise. But it's been a pleasure working with Thiago, so I'm sad to see him go, but excited for his future. But yeah, he's a real one. I guess I'm going to kick it back to Thiago, to be honest, for the Indexer repo. And so let's get this going.
Okay. So we are still working on the auto grafting feature. It's showing to be trickier than we originally planned, especially about how to keep grafts syncing. We will need to probably make a migration around the indexing rules to make the protocol network field nullable. This will enable this will also enable not needing to specify the protocol network whenever you create a new off-chain rule. But yeah, we're in the middle of development, but we should expect at least maybe 2 PRs before the next release, and a new migration, which should be transparent. Indexers shouldn't be worried about having to take any action on the new migration. But yeah, that's the what's planned for the next steps. Migration to allow the protocol network column to be null, and following code changes to let the agent understand that indexing rules can now have no network. And then this will clear the way to the auto grafting feature. It's not clear though. Maybe the autograph team might come first with some workarounds, and but I think that after, if it's before or if it's after, we will end up with a new migration to remove the not null constraint from the protocol network field. So yeah, I think this is bad. It paves the way for better UX. And making the agent smarter about indexing rules and protocol networks. And yeah, but that's pretty much it.
Cool. Thank you, Thiago. Next, I don't have a full kind of view into, yeah, for real, King Peepo vibes. But yeah, I don't have a full view into GraphNode for you all today, but I do have a TLDR of kind of the work in progress from the team that I'd love to share. And so hopefully this is the first of many to come and more in-depth views into work we're doing across different teams. But one of the main things we're focusing on now is kind of simplifying the integration testing framework just to make it easier for our team to add new features and automatically test if things are going to break, which ends up being really great for you all because there's fewer bugs to report and everyone's just happy. And so as much as we love hanging out and talking to Discord about pain points, it's great if we can kind of avoid bugs. And so this will really help us do that better. And that's kind of entailing a lot of migrating from JS to Rust. So everyone loves Rust. So hooray for Rust. But another thing we've been working on is improving the integration between GraphNode and substreams. I think this has been a pain point for different types of users. And so we're working to improve logging, make just kind of a nicer handshake between these two technologies so that users can just more effectively do awesome stuff with data. Besides that, more coming in terms of views into GraphNode, but we'll continue doing these project boards. Not sure the exact delivery, but can rest assured that this will continue moving forward. So your feedback is always appreciated on what you'd like us to cover. But I think that's it for project board able. I don't know if I'm going to open up questions or just pivot to Sunrise. I'm cool with either one.
If folks have any questions, feel free to raise their hand or post in the chat, and we can try to get that addressed for you. Otherwise, we can, of course, move on. I can see Matthew's typing, so I'm assuming there's a question.
Well, I'll wait a second or two, and then we can... Plans for closing allocations immediately. Let me... Off the top of my head, I don't recall if we have a specific issue for that in our kind of immediate backlog, but I'll get back to you and I'll kind of share. I think that there was some work on the protocol team happening. Yeah, I think it's the smart contract that is kind of blocking that. Not to say it's someone else, but I think smart contract is working on that. I will see if I can get updates on that and share that more broadly with the community. We'll try to invite them to Project Watch. In terms of L2 migration, okay, yeah, I was about to say before, okay, Pablo's here. I'm just going to do one quick thing. We're going to prioritize getting cost models on Arbitrum just because we know that's an important feature for indexers. And so keep an eye out for that. But TBA or coming soon, TM. But I'll kick it to Pablo.
Yeah, so I missed the question about smart contracts before. Was it about the closing allocations in less than one epoch?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, that is on our side. We're working on the contract changes for that and hoping to get that audited relatively soon. But to go through the audit process, it will take a while as usual. But we're trying to move that as fast as possible. And then the other question about L2 rewards. So everything is, in principle, everything's in track to do another bump of rewards at the end of this month. So week of November 27th. What I wanted to gauge here is if there is generally consensus to move to 95%, or if a more conservative next step like 75 or something like that would be desirable. I know some of you folks are still worried about delegators being a bit sleepy with the transfers, and yeah, we've heard a few comments from delegators being a bit worried that this was moving too fast. So, like in principle, my understanding is the council is still on board with a 95% bump, but understanding how people feel about that change here, or if a smaller bump would be better, could help like bring that to the council and discuss.
Seems like there's a few people typing.
Yeah, I guess we can wait for comments in the chat and continue with the discussion. Folks want, I don't want to hold things up on this.
No worries. Thanks so much for hopping in. Yeah, I'm just noticing Stake Machine's comment there about 50% of delegators have moved, less than 50%. Yeah, that's quite tricky. I mean, does anyone have any? I mean, ultimately, it's just lack of engagement, so it's really hard to remedy that. But if anyone has been doing something to ignite engagement with their delegators and wants to share what's working, maybe that's useful for a Stake Machine, because yeah, that's a shame. That can be quite frustrating. See a few people typing. Okay, seems like the conversation. Oh, Cohen's coming up on stage. Hello. Is there something you'd like to add, Cohen? I can see you're unmuted.
Yeah, okay.
There we go. Yeah.
I needed the button, it seems. Yeah, it's a bit surprising for me that that there is delegator pushback for this. I think, to me, the most important parts in terms of migration is on one hand that we have enough indexers with enough stake, and that on the other hand we have enough subgraphs, because that's the core infrastructure of the network. You need the providers and you need the clients, and as long as we have those, yeah, I'm a bit surprised that to hear that delegators are wanting to slow this down. I was just checking the dashboard from P2P, and it says that there's like 43% and a half something of stake migrated to Arbitrum. So that's pretty close to the reward share of 50%. There's always going to be some lag. So I'm not really seeing a reason to postpone this migration. I think it's very user friendly to do the migration. So there's not really a big technical challenge in my opinion either. Maybe it's just another push of trying to encourage people and say, look, this is really happening. And I think the migration of the rewards will be one of those reasons. It will be a big change that is coming, and the change is needed. the Ethereum costs are getting too high, especially if bull is coming. So I think potentially it's just more about communication again and trying to push and trying to create waves.
Can you guys hear me? I'm on my mobile signal, so it's probably going to be a little bit noisy. Airplanes passing literally above me. But I just wanted to chime in the conversation and let you guys know about my opinion on this. I don't think we should be worried about delegators that are slipping because it's hurting indexes on the network. Running on two networks, especially if on mainnet right now, given the number of subgraphs that we have there, we have to allocate to a lot of the subgraphs for little rewards, basically, which is completely counterintuitive from the actual goal that we're trying to reach out to, right? We want to make indexing less prohibitive in terms of cost for allocations, but we're ruining that with keeping mainnet around, which is already, we have like 70% of the traffic of our Arbitrum. I don't need to wait more for the to be moved over. Eventually, those delegators will or will not ever move. You never know. The only thing you're doing now is hurting the mixers. But yeah, that's my point of view.
That was really useful. Thank you so much, Cohen and Payne, for chiming in there. I guess this is all useful for Pablo in terms of temp check for how to move forward. So, yeah. Anyone else want to chime in on this topic before we move on, or want to share any thoughts? Well, I see Matthew's typing. Okay, cool. It seems like Pablo just mentioned this was a really useful temp check, and he'll relay this over to council members. So that's awesome to hear. Cool. Cool. We have a packed agenda, so let's move on. I'm going to throw it back to Paco, who's going to take us into the sunrise announcement.
Cool. Sunrise. I think that it's here. I think that's the big announcement. There's been some exciting hype building, and I'd like to share a link for you all to read in your free time whenever. Hopefully today we can answer some of your questions that you might have already. Also do a quick TLDR if you're not really familiar with it, but it's an initiative that EdgeNode has spearheaded to really make it seamless for subgraph developers and data consumers to upgrade to the decentralized network, which is epic for us as indexers. So yeah, next step, sunbathe, Petco. I agree. Come visit me in the desert. It's nice. Yes, the sunrise is here. So at any point, if you have questions or comments, feel free to interject because this is pretty laid back. It's Paca. But in terms of indexer focused updates, I think that you're all familiar with the allow list that Giannis mentioned in the last month or so to participate along as an upgrade indexer to support decentralized awesomeness. And I think we got over a dozen submissions, but I think most of them need to resubmit because you all didn't link your address to the submission. And so there's no way for us to verify if you're actually an indexer. And so Giannis posted again in Discord about this pretty recently, but I'd encourage you all to check that post and kind of resubmit if you're interested. I'd say if you had any issues with that, reach out and I'll unblock that, but it should just be a form and resubmitting, and then we should be good to go. So get on that so that we can really bathe in the sun together. This glorious decentralized sunrise. But all jokes aside, I think this is going to be really cool. I remember this is something that we were all getting hyped up about in Graph Day, and so as a community member turned core developer, I'm just like super excited to see this come to fruition and be a part of it in my own little way. And so I really encourage you all to share your feedback on this, positive or negative, so we can make this as great as possible for everyone, basically. And so if there's any questions, feel free to unmute or put them in chat, but I'll do my best to get back to you quickly, and if I don't know it right away. And I'd encourage you to check out that doc, and yeah, let's do this together. I like all the memes and emojis. Yeah, and so Derek's comment is the plan to enable all chains on the network, but limit those with indexing reward capabilities. Yes, that is how I understand it. I need to confirm on the testnet side of things, but I will get back to you on that. And Vince from Pinax is saying, should we be receiving something that we submitted correctly? I'm 99% I submitted operator address, etc. I'll check with Giannis to see if there's some kind of follow-up action that's going to occur, but that's not something I know. But I will get back to you all and post in Discord. Derek, could you elaborate that last post that you did?
Yeah, so just enabling all chains, is that something that we can open up like right now, or are there other steps that need to be completed before we can open up all chains? Just from the indexer side, that obviously affects what we're doing if we're going to start syncing additional nodes and all that stuff and trying to serve queries on chains that don't have indexing rewards but may have known query fees. That's definitely an action item on our end. So it'd be nice to know when we're looking at opening up all chains, and ideally, if that can come sooner rather than later, that'd be what I'm in favor of.
Okay, no, that's great feedback. I think I'd need to get back to you on kind of definitive timelines with respect to that, but I think collectively we're all in agreement of a sooner rather than later. How soon that is TBD still, but I will definitely share that sentiment internally. So thanks. And if anyone has comment or feedback, whether edge node or otherwise, on that, feel free to chime in as well.
Alrighty. Yeah, as Packer said, if there are any comments, feel free to mention. Yeah, we'll move on. We have Justin from last week's conversation from Edge and Node, who's here to help us navigate this conversation. Yeah, thank you, Packer. Thank you. Always worth saying thank you. Will the upgrade indexer place allocations on all subgraphs? Packer, that's a question for you. Okay, answer in chat. Cool. So we have Justin from Edge Node. We had the conversation last week about this new 𝗀𝗀 58. It's obviously an interesting one that's got people excited. So we're here to do part 2. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I will let Justin speak to the topic. So without further ado, Justin, if you're ready, let's get into it.
Thank you. Excited is a euphemism. That's very nice. So I just want to follow up with a couple things from last week that I think were maybe a little bit unclear at the end and maybe even at the beginning, but then I want to open up for more questions. I had to run. We were at 15 after, and I had to run something else, so I want to make sure I'm here to answer more questions. So the first thing was the motivation for the talk was to respond to potential centralizing effects of GIP 58. It seemed like in the forum there was a lot of concerns about, if we allow the consumers to make choices, that can lead to centralizing effects. So that was the. Oh, I lost the share screen. I don't know if anybody else did. All right. Well, okay. I lost the share screen, but I remember what it said, and we can share the I can share that one slide after that. So the graph is okay. So the graph is committed to decentralized networks in which indexers participate in a fair market where no large player has unfair advantage.
Sorry, Justin. Is everything back now? Can you see it?
Yeah, but when you scroll back to your Discord, it changes the screen.
Okay. Sorry, I need to do that to mute myself. But yeah, I'll get back to you. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. So we don't want, we're committed to not having large players being able to have an unfair advantage and strong arm smaller players. The point of the kind of talk was to show that there are levers in which we can do this, both within the protocol and extra protocol. The second thing that I wanted to clarify is that in no way did I meant to say that we want to punish efficient indexers that do a great job at serving queries and serving customers. We are very much all on the same team. I do want to reiterate that. If indexer is working hard, provide excellent quality of service, they should be rewarded. We're not saying anything along the talk was not meant to say that indexers shouldn't be rewarded. That goes without saying. Of course, good work should be rewarded. What we do want to do, and it's a subtlety, is prevent indexers from exploiting protocol loopholes to earn an unfair advantage over other indexers. So this is maybe not the best indexer or the best data provider getting all of. So what we don't want is somebody that is suboptimal to be able to get more fees and more payments than somebody that's actually doing a good job because they were able to instill some type of barriers to entry that stops competition. So we want to prevent kind of this unfair growth of a large indexer, but still simultaneously reward the efficient and the hardworking, high quality indexers. So I just want to clarify those 2 points. It seemed to be two of the lingering questions, but I do want to open the floor up both to these questions, if you have questions on this or anything lingering from last week.
I'm just going to adjust my screen so I can have a look at the chat simultaneously.
Sure thing.
Seems like I can't do that, so no worries.
I don't think we need the slide anymore. That's okay.
Okay. Seems like there's a question from Derek in the chat, Justin.
Yeah, he did have a thread going on a different question, but we can wait for that. There's a question for you too, by the way.
Oh yes, on stage, not video. So Payne, yeah, we're experimenting with this format, seeing if it makes sense. I think one thing that we mentioned was pretty cool. Would be something that would be pretty cool to have would be the waiting music, the elevator music, and seems like this stage has that, but it doesn't have soundboard, so that's a bit of a letdown. So yeah, we're just experimenting, and maybe at the end of this we'll ask if people prefer this or the other one. NGMI. Yeah, we'll do like a quick temp check and see if we want to stick around with this or move on at the end of the call. Cool.
Okay, so I'll read Derek's question. So he says, Justin, in the current state of indexing rewards dominating query fees, oh, sorry, my chat just went down. Wouldn't this improve market power for those running minimal rent-seeking setups? So by this, I think you mean indexing fees, like transitioning from indexing rewards to indexing fees lead to market power for those running minimal rent-seeking setups. So what I want to be clear on, and this is probably not clear in the proposal and something we can make more clear, is that be careful when we say minimal rent seeking. By that, what we mean is minimal rent seeking for a given quality. So we don't see this as becoming a race to the bottom. Eventually, as I mentioned in the talk, something that we would have to do is we would have to be very robust with providing information about the quality so that indexers can choose their quality and then price accordingly. I don't see this as something as a race to the bottom of, let me have the worst possible thing because then the consumer will choose me because I'm the cheapest and they have no other information. So I'm not sure if that's what your question is, but if it is your question, you're absolutely right. We would need to provide the information about quality of service to prevent this race to the bottom. So that's a good question. Maybe I misunderstood something. Would indexing rewards be deprecated or set at an average rate across all allocated stake? So there is no plan to deprecate indexing rewards. I can't repeat that enough. That is going forward. We are keeping them. The leading proposal right now, as we kind of discussed a little bit in the forum chat, is to more or less, and I'm being hand wavy here, but is to more or less remove signal from indexing rewards. But indexing rewards will still be there. So yes, you're right. It's closer to an average rate across all allocated stake. I should also mention that that is not finalized. The only thing that is finalized at this moment that I'm aware of is that indexing rewards and issuance, at least the total amount, is not changing. So reading your question. Yeah, so you're correct. So if I allocate 10 million on a subgraph with one entity, basically something that's really cheap, I can get a lot of indexing rewards for minimal cost. This is more so what I meant by rent-seeking behavior. Yes. So with the flat indexing rewards, that is a problem that we see. So a couple things that would maybe, so actually you already touched on, though I would lose query fees and indexing payment revenue streams. That's absolutely right. So obviously, as we transition to having higher query fees and having consumers pay more for indexing payment, that wouldn't necessarily be the best strategy because you would want to get those indexing fees directly from the consumer as well as the additional query fee. So you're absolutely right. The other thing that I would like to share, and I'd actually be interested in feedback, is doing a very cursory data analysis. We do see that the rate of return on stake across subgraphs is pretty constant, regardless of how hard it actually is to index that subgraph. I'm not saying that's a great thing, and in fact, it's something we probably don't want. But that type of rent-seeking behavior kind of looks like it's also still going on right now. A lot of typing going on.
Indeed.
Let me read this. Couldn't just your subgraph existing on the network, similar to a SaaS model, cover some emissions, or at a minimum, just Vince, I see you become a speaker. Do you want to actually read your question and explain it, maybe?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I don't have to do push to talk. Yeah, I've just been thinking because I know a large part of the problem with the network and the problem with curation that's been discussed in the GIP is it's not really finding what's valuable in the network and what indexers should be going after. And there's kind of that chicken and egg scenario with that. But I was wondering if we did have some type of similar to, spinning up an EC2 instance on Amazon. Amazon doesn't care whether you're using that EC2 instance or not. You're going to get billed for it if you are using it, if you have the instance. And basically, if you publish your subgraph on the network and you had to pay for it to continue for it to exist on the network, that would also provide a mechanism to what is valuable. Because if I was posted a subgraph on the network and I was no longer using it, which there are many abandoned subgraphs on the network, if you had to pay for it to continue to be queried and exist, I think it would provide a model to say, oh, this is valuable because at least someone's willing to pay for it in the first place. Not just with queries, but just to exist in the network. I've just been kind of playing with that thought.
Yeah, that's interesting to add a fee to actually have it on the network. It does say what's interesting, but then the question still remains is how do you allocate to indexers or service providers to actually do the indexing? And you'd still need some mechanism for that. Having them just put up kind of an amount of money and then have indexers race to it or stake to it still has a lot of the problems of past curation. I would have to think it through all of the way. It doesn't seem like something that couldn't go along with this GIP, but I don't necessarily see how it solves some of the old curation problems. But that's only thinking about it for the 10 seconds while you were saying it.
Yeah. I was thinking it more so in kind of in flux with what's going on with the current GIP, and because it would also clear up a lot of the network to see, what is active right now on the network, or am I allocating to a subgraph that has, 900 GRT curated to it 2 years ago, and no one's queried it for 2 years. And that stuff would be gone, and indexers would have a lot clearer view on the network of, oh, all these people are using this service.
So with indexing payments, that kind of goes away, and like thinking about where you need to allocate goes away, because the consumer will say, hey, if you index this, I will pay you based on some posted price or some posted price terms based on the subgraph gas calculation that we still need to put out, and the guidance we still need to put out. So still acknowledging a shortcoming there. It says, hey, if you do this, here's your payment. So those ones that are kind of dead, they wouldn't do that, and then indexers would know they don't have to go there. Now, of course, we're still allowing the case where there are query fees. We're not precluding indexers from indexing anything in particular. So if they see there's a lot of query fees and getting high revenue from those query fees, they could still do the indexing if they want to forego the indexing payment. But just the consumer saying, hey, here's your money for doing the indexing should be a strong enough signal. We can come back to that, Vince. There's a lot of conversations going here that I'm way behind on. Dumb question, and I completely lost the plot with dip and curation stuff. If people don't even want to pay for query fees, what makes you believe they want to pay indexers for even other things? That's a great question. Cannot sidestep that one. That's why the transition has to be very carefully planned if we do something like this. I mean, if there is no market ever, even if we are very competitive within the graph, then there's nothing we can do. Doing this transition would have to, we'd have to be very careful about learning what our customers are actually willing to pay. And of course, relative to the competition, for example, I see Derek mentioned 𝗨𝘀𝗧𝗧𝗏 there. That's something that we would also have to keep in mind. Yes. So to Pablo's comment, he's absolutely right. So although consumers are like it, the GIP allows any general party to choose, but what we expect is consumers will use the gateway to automate that decision.
It's not only that, it's also that like if the being willing to pay is like I think there are a lot of consumers that would be willing to pay a subscription rather than like paying specifically for queries or indexing in particular. So like I suspect what we're gonna see is the gateways charge like a fee for everything, and then the gateway is the one that is willing to pay for the indexing on the one hand and the query fees on the other hand. But yeah, I agree. Like we are assuming there is a market for this, and I think it's evident in the amount of queries in the hosted service and the network at this point.
So Derek, to your most recent.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just saying, Derek, to your most recent message. I'm sorry, I don't actually know the magnitude of these numbers. Is that 3,600 high or low?
I mean, that consumer is paying about $200 a month in queries on the graph, just in GRT. I was more just kind of showing that the way that they're pricing it is not on a per query basis, it's on a per entity basis. This is more on what Vince was chatting about.
I see.
Oh, and I was just going to add, so when you were saying the selection algorithm and then how it was brought up that it's kind of going to do it automatically initially, and I was kind of saying in that more SaaS model and finding out what's valuable through that, that would work in that way because then there wouldn't be this, behavior of selecting certain indexers or something. It would be able to query what is valuable and indexers go after what is valuable, but also in an aspect give a level of abstraction to who's indexing their subgraph, because I think at the end of the day, a customer doesn't really care who's indexing it, just as long as they're getting what they want for their money at the end of the day. And I think if you go the more SaaS route with finding out what's valuable, then in the end, indexers know what to go after. That is valuable in the end because someone's willing to pay for it. And there's a level of abstraction in the protocol to where whoever's serving it is what the gateway is doing. And there's no need for those extra steps of beyond, oh, here's a price I put up and now I got to follow it and go after it and battle on pricing and all that stuff. And you can just kind of battle on allocations as we're doing right now.
When you say battle on allocations, can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, just as far as like query pricing and stuff. I know most people are using 𝗨𝗨𝗪, well, at least on Ethereum they were, and just kind of, competing for query prices and stuff like that. And some have custom cost models, but basically using cost models to, fight over who's going to get the queries. And also, there's the larger aspect of, who has the best latency, who has the best uptime, all that other magic stuff that we don't really have a deep view into as of right now into the gateways. But yeah, it would provide, I think, a level of abstraction that at the end of the day, in my opinion, isn't really needed if you can find what's valuable and the customer is getting what they want without knowing who's giving it to them.
Yes. So I agree 100% that the gateway can abstract that, or the algorithm can abstract that away. I want to start touching a little bit on indexer fungibility. So definitely two indexers that are identical in their, we'll call them relevant characteristics. Think of quality of service, think of geo. They should obviously be treated exactly the same. There should be no kind of identity-based discrimination based on that. But we do want to allow down the road is at least for product differentiation. That's something that we talked about in the talk, that's actually a good thing. So it doesn't necessarily mean that every indexer should be identical, but it means every indexer of certain characteristics should be identical. For example, we want to allow kind of like the super high performer indexer to realize that he's a high performer and then maybe charge more versus kind of a normal indexer to capture a different market. So I just want to also like be very careful about what we mean by indexer interchangeability. Just want to clarify that. So Derek, that's something we actually thought about. There's a little bit of civil concerns with that one.
It's civil concerns, but also like you have no good way to incorporate QoS into a selection algorithm there. Whereas if it's actually choosing, then you can choose based on previous history of QoS, at least as reported by the gateways.
It's also true.
And I want to emphasize again that most consumers wouldn't actually be choosing, but the gateway would just choose based on the choice of parameters in general.
Mm-hmm.
You probably pay a fee, like a flat fee that gives you a certain amount of redundancy, like 10 indexers per subgraph or something like that. And then the gateway will spread out the load across the indexers that are like within parameters of QoS and everything.
Stake machine, yes, that is something we're working towards with this subgraph gas. Again, this is on us for not getting this out long enough, but to figure out exactly what are the activities that incur costs and aligning incentives on those is one of our main tasks going forward. But we hear you on that one. I could stay, by the way.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Pablo. Appreciate it. And yeah, let's do parts very quickly, and then let's keep the conversation going. So, as always, I'm going to shout out the code for the POAP. So let me just pull it up right now. It is sunrise-future. Sunrise-future. I'm gonna paste it in chat so you guys can go ahead and get the POAP. Yeah, I'd say let's keep rolling. We can roll over a little bit. We've had a little bit of a packed agenda. Of course, anyone who's busy, feel free to drop off. But yeah, I'd say let's go for another like 5-10 minutes if there are more questions.
Derek, can you explain your most recent comment, if you don't mind? If the gateway is going to be doing it, might it be easy enough to just use the consumer's indexing fee to spoof traffic? Can you tell me what that means?
Yeah, like let's say I'm a consumer and I'm like, okay, great, I'm going to shove $50 a month into ensuring that my subgraph is indexed, right? If let's say I preload that, whether it's in GRT or USDC or whatever it is, if I preload that into some type of billing contract, could there be something that just spoofs query traffic to the subgraph and essentially spends that $50 a month in queries? And thus, really, it's all just going into query fee generation for indexers. And that kind of solves the indexing speed, quality of service, and all that.
So you're basically talking about, I think what you're referring to is something that we have thrown on before. It's basically prepaid query fees. It basically says, I promise I will spend at least $50 in queries. And like, if I don't, like, you could take it anyway. Is that kind of something that you're referring to?
Yeah, or that the gateway actually simulates those queries to ensure that the payment is made.
Yeah, so that's a good point. One of the issues with that is indexing cost heterogeneity is something we were trying to address. So prepaid query fees, like down the line, are not out of the question. That goes without saying. But when you have subgraphs, the one entity subgraph versus Uniswap, it would be tough to be able to just commit to certain query fees, especially because as the network grows and there's new subgraphs, it's difficult to tell how difficult it's going to be to index these new subgraphs. So what we want is a method to allow indexers to get paid more for more expensive subgraphs to index. That being said, prepaid query fees as a supplement to this is not off the table. Yeah, Ford has a good point. Yes, there can be a gateway doing a selection, but there's nothing stopping us from using any type of algorithm. I think conversation's dying down a little bit. Happy to stay, but thank you everybody for your input and your thoughts. This is very helpful.
Amazing. Well, yeah, as we've mentioned, if folks have more questions, feel free to type away, or unmute your mic, or raise your hand. And yeah, we'll get the question answered. If not, then we can wrap. I see a few people typing. Okay, it seems like the conversation is part related, so we'll leave it there. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Justin, and the rest of you for being here for today's conversation. I noticed, because we're a little bit over, a few people have left, but I wanted to check in before we wrap up and say, how did people feel about today's venue for the conversation? Is it a yay or nay? Are people, thank you for posting the okay, we've got one nay. Okay. Thanks Billy, for posting the feedback channel. Please, guys, feedback survey, please. Jesus Christ, mate. If you guys have any feedback, please do post in the survey chat. Okay, cool. Seems like people are not a fan of this new medium, so we'll go back to the original next week. It's good to experiment. So now we know this isn't the place. But thank you all for attending today's conversation, and we look forward to seeing you all again same time next week. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.